digits now, big double digits.
Yeah, I think we're ready to.
Yeah.
So okay, well let's kick off. Hopefully, Councillor Ray might be able to join us.
It's in Beijing.
Oh, so he's definitely not.
It's definitely in Beijing.
Okay, so right now, well, that kick item number one is apologies.
So we received apologies from Councillor Drake and Councillor Spiri standing in as substitute chair.
And obviously Councillor Ray. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, would any members like to declare any interests, pecuniary or personal?
So can I just
sorry, yes.
accept the apologies?
Accept apologies.
Yeah.
Declarations of interest for the agenda tonight?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so Chair's report and urgent items. Nothing's been done on the chair reports. Welcome to the meeting. Any questions received as before?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's look for a couple of sets of minutes. So we have for the previous corporate policy and finance meeting of 4th of March. Any comments, questions?
All good.
Queries? Everyone okay to confirm? Please raise your hand. Thank you.
Enter Jane.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item is some other minutes referred to meetings. So starting with I think the vulnerable, just noting to receive the minutes of the Vulnerable People Working Party from the 5th of May. And any comments, questions? All those in favour of receiving the minutes, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Okay, just moving on to the officers' reports. We'll just do the next item, please.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the full planner and resolution tracker. All the items of the resolution tracker from the last meeting have been marked as complete. Looking ahead, the main items next time in September will be the start of the budget setting process for the next financial year. And not mentioned in the forward planner, but just to be mindful that with the new community grants process, that will be so the deadline for the community grants is the beginning of August, with them to be presented at the September meeting.
Okay, so that could be on the agenda for the.
Yeah, it will be on the agenda, just not in the forward planner. And the committee may wish to note that a lot of the items in this agenda will also appear on the council agenda on the 22nd of June, just for final approval.
Yep.
Have to take any questions.
Okay, all those in favour of just receiving the forward plan and the resolution tracker, please raise your hand. Okay. So next item 7.2 is, I think, just a refresh of the terms of reference for this particular committee. So, and we can just introduce us to the updates, please.
Yeah, of course, Chair. So, regularly reviewing the committee's terms of reference is important to ensure its purpose and responsibilities remain aligned with the council's current objectives, as well as any relevant policy and regulatory changes. It supports good governance and giving yourselves the opportunity to review them and ensure there is collective agreement. With this in mind, there have been some minor changes made to the terms of reference, but nothing that is material on the committee's role. All the changes are laid out in the papers, but I have to take any questions.
A clarification question, if I may. The red underlined ones, are they new, or they just changed their numbering?
Just change the numbering and moving around.
Yeah. So were there any new ones in there?
Not new, no.
Okay.
And those deletions, it's just moving around and summarising and tidying up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Silly question. Does the ordering in itself have any meaning in local government legislation? Is there any implication for the committee to consider just on the ordering itself?
No, Chair, it was just with the report that goes to annual town meeting about the different committees. We're just trying to align, so both those, the order in that report in terms of reference match.
Understood. Any questions for Daniel on this? Okay, all those in favour of accepting these changes, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Okay, next item is the bank reconciliation for March. Please.
Thank you, Chair. So the report presents the bank reconciliation as at the 31st of March. All balances have been reviewed and verified against the council's accounting records with no discrepancies identified. And there's not enough more to add really, Chair. We have to take any questions.
Do you have any comments or questions from the members tonight? I was being asked to receive the bank reconciliation report itself, and secondly, note that the total funds available, £207,533 and change. All those in favour of accepting those two items, please raise your hand. Very much. Next item is one of my favourites actually, the receivables, the outstanding income item. If you would update the members, please.
Thank you, Chair. So it's probably easiest if you look on page 32 on the appendix. This summarises the outstanding income due to the council as at the 31st of March. The committee may wish to note that there's only two remaining items left on here. So the first one is relation to the Football Foundation. This relates to a grant claim that was first delayed while we were waiting for our contractor to supply us with some invoices. We've now got them, but it's a case of going through the verification process on the Football Foundation website in order to submit it. So I did have access to the website, but it's now expired, and so I've got to go through that process again. But hopefully that will be done in the next couple of days, and I'll be sorted. The Football Foundation.
My eyes are not
So where are we?
It's on the lower table, so halfway down, it's about just over 9,000.
Okay.
Yeah, just over 9. The grant itself is just over 10,400, but for what was owed at this point in time, it was just 9,000. And the other one is at the very bottom regarding the Harpenden Town FC electricity charges. So this concerns the electricity usage for the floodlights. So again, for the clubhouse. So the town council pays for the floodlights, electricity usage, and the town FC pay for the clubhouse usage. So we pay the total bill, and it's just a case of claiming that money from the town FC. I've been in ongoing conversations with them about it and making sure the number's correct. And now this number has been finalised. I feel I'm just waiting on information back from them for additional cleaning and additional water. So I've got a meeting with them on, I think it's Wednesday the 24th. So, and then once we know exactly, I can provide everything to do with electricity. They can do the same for the water and the cleaning, and we can come to the meet in the middle, and they'll owe us the net figure. So in summary, both of those should be all sorted in the next couple of weeks or so.
Okay.
Had to take any other questions.
Just on the table itself, there's the lower blocks is less than 30 days old, but the invoice dates are relating to March, which is more than 30 days.
So it's less than 30 days and at the 31st of March.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, I see the point at the top. Okay, fine. And as of today, which of these major receivables are still outstanding?
So it's just the Football Foundation,
Right.
and the bottom one for the town FC. So it's just those two. Everything else has been paid.
Very good. Yes, okay, so committee's being asked us to note the schedule of outstanding receivables. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, everybody. Next item is our committee update.
Thank you, Chair. So this report summarises the no, hold on. This report presents the provisional outturn for last financial year. If I can draw your attention to page 36 in your agenda pack, the total favourable variance was 769,000, of which the 580 you see at the top relates to capital projects and projects funded by earmarked reserves. These variants are due to timing expenditure and don't represent actual savings.
Okay.
The remaining 190 is primarily due to known factors. So things like the asset replacement plans for the Town Ranger vehicles and the AGP carpet replacement that we're building in, as well as variances that we've discussed at committee before. So things like the improved commercial income at the tennis courts and Lideneck car park, the insurance savings, utility savings on the concourse, and the bit of investment interest as well. This full amount has been allocated to specific earmark reserves, which are detailed later on in the agenda. And just to note, it's particularly positive result considering the amount that we've had to spend on trees this year that was still in a favourable position.
Yeah. So the 190 is savings or
Yeah.
rather than
Either savings or budgeted items that we've built in for the asset replacement plan, so for future expenditure. Have to take any questions from anyone?
Seems to be a lot more commercial income is going on tree surgeons at the moment. Okay. All those members in favour of accepting and noting the report, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item is our year-end accounts.
So this is the year-end accounts for 2025-26, including a simplified statement of accounts and an overview of our reserves position as at the 31st of March. As members will be aware, although we are no longer required to produce a full set of statutory accounts, it's still good practice to pull this together so council can see how the finances are managed over the year. The document itself covers the key areas you expect, including income and expenditure, balance sheet, and the breakdown of the reserves. Just picking up a few headlines. In terms of the reserves overall, the council's in a strong position with a total reserve of 2.47 million at year end. This is made up of 1.33 million in capital receipts, 549,000 in earmark reserves, and just under 600,000 in general reserves. The general reserve has remained stable and is still above the £500,000 target, which gives us a healthy buffer of just over 4 months worth of net expenditure. Earmark reserves have increased slightly, which reflects the fact that we can continuing to plan ahead and set money aside for known projects and future commitments. And finally, the capital receipts reserve continues to be the largest element, supporting the delivery of our capital programme and longer term investment in community assets. So overall, the council remains in a good, stable financial position with all the reserves aligned to our asset replacement plans and future priorities set out in our business plan and management plan. If I can also just make members aware that in section 5, or where you're asked to release all of the reserves, there's an addition that I'd like to make to that, where at CSC last week, there was a new project for floodlights at Rockhampstead Skate Park. So I'd like to add that in to the recommendation. And when you see the council reports on the 22nd of June, that the skate park floodlights will be included in that release of reserves.
And will that be approved at the council meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't approve it here. You're just
No,
for information.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's everything from me on this item, Chair.
Any questions from members on the accounts, please? Just to clarify, the accounts are, once they're approved, they're published on our website as well.
That's correct, Chair.
That's very good.
Mind if I open a window?
Please. If I look at page 52, and I know we're a non-profit making entity, but in crude mathematical terms, our surplus of 142,000 is about 6% of our gross expenditure. So we are, we're running a healthy, I don't know if that's too generous, but a constructive sort of surplus against our financials, which again, seems to stay.
We're in a good position, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, can I just clarify? So I sit on the Community Services Committee, and it was my understanding that we'd already recommended the council release £15,000 from the Community Safety Initiative budget.
So it's not gone to council for approval yet. I think the idea of the recommendation at CSC was for, in the same way as what we're asking tonight, is for the release of reserves to be approved by CPF, but then go on to council for final approval. And it's the same for anything to do with our capital reserves. So where the idea of the floodlights is to be funded from a capital reserve, it's approved by CSC as it was last week, but then needs to go to council for full approval or final approval. Right.
Okay, so if CSC, for my future reference, if CSC wants to fund something out of reserves by releasing reserves, then the process then would be to come to this committee before moving to.
No, it would be to go to council. The only reason I'm asking, adding the floodlights into this is because I've already got a report about releasing several reserves. So I'm including the floodlights into that report, rather than if we were in September or November committee cycle and I've not got a report going to council about releasing reserves, you'd have the CSC report about floodlights at CSC, and then a kind of mirror image of the report going to council. So the only difference is I've got a report with it going lots of like reserves that are being released. So that's the only difference this time around.
Understood. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Any further questions from members on the annual accounts?
Different from the last sections. So what decides which one go to CPF before the full council, which one go directly without going through the CPF to the full council if it related to a budget or release of reserve related issues?
So I think based on the terms of reference of each committee, ideally everything would go to a CPF committee or a CSC and then go on to a full council. Occasionally, due to timing issues, things do go straight to council, but from a governance point of view, the ideal is each report would come through one of the two committees and then go to full council. But it should be the exception that things go straight to council.
So put in other words, that is only timing issue or timing,
Or
it's not enough, then
I'd say timing, or if we know it's a major decision that everyone needs to be aware of, then it would go straight to council, I think.
But it's not a case of it comes to CPF and we sign it off and then we're done. At the end of the day, we would still go to full council anyway as the final
Yeah.
arbiter.
It's always been.
So that, yeah, that step still takes place. So we had one of the committees commissions the spending based on its terms of reference. There's ideally it would, well, we've been informed about it here, so I consider myself informed.
Yeah.
And all of us will get a vote on this when it comes to full council. So to me, that seems in order. Very good, very good questions. Thank you. Anything else from the accounts? So we're just being asked to note and sort of forward the accounts to the full council for approval. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. The next item is our internal audit report. Thank you, Chair. Sandra.
So I'm pleased to say that we've received substantial assurance from our internal auditors with no recommendations, which can be seen in section 1.5 on page 69 of your pack. Hopefully this gives councillors the reassurance that the numbers are quoted in the earlier agenda items are correct. And that we've got no recommendations for any changes, but I'm happy to take any questions on the internal audit report.
And the internal auditor is CS, which as I understand is like a shared service that operates across Hertfordshire, serving local authorities at different levels, providing essentially a standard sort of internal audit service. All those in favour of receiving and accepting the internal audit reports, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay. Next item is our citizens update.
Thank you, Chair. So the information provided is for CAD for the whole of the financial year for 2025-26, showing 466 clients helped with 1,759 issues across the year. The committee may wish to note the case studies provided by CAB at the bottom of page 18 that tries to bring some of these numbers to life, but have to take any questions.
I have a question, Dan. What's the difference between issues and activities? It want to ask Dan.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I can certainly come back to
Yeah,
it.
they're very close in number, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their
Yeah.
class is an issue or activity. But
Cases, I assume you can have multiple cases per person.
Mhm.
But,
so clarify that for the committee. That's no problem.
I mean, minor comment is it's an amazing investment from an ROI point of view. Into local people.
A very good report, very consistent with previous reports. So, any questions for the members? Any comments?
Just more on a curiosity, from table, the client financial uplift is substantially lower this year.
Higher issues.
Higher, it's higher. Yeah, higher. So, yeah, is it because the case of the client's number is like the percentage of increment is not similar to the uplift? So I just, out of curiosity,
Yeah.
I'm interested to know.
What's driving that
Okay.
significant increase?
I can certainly try and get some more information from the CIB about that. I'd have thought it would be where it's on a case by case basis. They help everyone as best they can, and some people are entitled to higher amounts of benefits than others. And I think that'd be the reason behind it, but I can certainly ask them to clarify what the reason for the difference is.
Yeah, together with the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, all those in favour of noting reports, please raise your hand. Thank you, everybody. All right, next item is the update from the Harpenden Collective.
So the report presents the information from the Hopland Collective. They provided some great narrative that would have been emailed out to you with your pack. I think I've said before, but just to clarify, the way they present the information is great, super colourful and pictures, but I prefer to just send them out via email rather than include them in the pack, just to try and save money on paper and ink. We've included a summary of their stats on page 83, paragraph 3.4, but I have to take any question on the numbers or the information they're provided.
Look at the last three reporting periods, the numbers are very stable, so 170 something. So have we sort of reached critical mass, or have we sort of saturated the population of available businesses to support, do you think?
I think they're so positive in the work they do. I think they're always looking at new ideas and trying to expand things. And we've certainly with the business mentoring work that they're doing in partnership with us is really sort of helping and thriving. So hopefully we haven't really reached that ceiling yet.
Okay.
I've got a question. The annual KPI column, is that target or is that the what's been delivered in the last 12 months?
That's the target.
Okay. So they've done a full year then. Those 150, 172, 174, 179. I assume they are
Cumulative.
not cumulative.
Mutually exclusive.
Exclusive is the word I was looking for. Thank you. So the 172 might be 152 plus 22. Sorry, 150 plus 22. And the 174 might be the original 172 plus 2. Do you know what I mean? What is it? Is the what's the incremental businesses rather than the total?
Yeah, so Chair, I think that's the question we take away. Essentially, we want to know how many unique businesses that is.
Yeah, because if the target was 350 unique, that could be 700 unique, or it could be
I suspect you get businesses coming in and coming
coming and
out.
going. Yeah, yeah. With events, I get is a what's happening that quarter. Yeah. So it'd be good to get a total of these then at the end of the 12 months, if possible.
Town Clerk, whether you're any of the other team members of the team have attended these, but any sort of broad themes that we should be paying attention to from local businesses?
In terms of the business forum, Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the business forum's still pretty much at its early days, and so we're trying to work out exactly what its focus is going to be. The mentoring program was one area that come up to start with. The idea that within Harpenden we've got a lot of expertise, a lot of skills and experience across the town, and a lot of small businesses, and so how could we marry those different kind of skills together? So the mentoring program was one of the early things that came out from that. There is various sort of other pieces of work related to different sectors. So one of the future roles of the business forum will be to probably break off into some subgroups, because some of the challenges, for example, that the retail sector might be facing might be very different to kind of other small businesses. So the future work of the forum will be to break off into some themed groups, I think, to really delve into particular sectors of business. There was one piece of work around, or an issue that came up around hospitality and overnight accommodation for local businesses, or a lack of. So where a number of small businesses are inviting people in over and don't have anywhere locally to stay. I think Luton Hoo being the closest. Obviously, there are some sort of cheaper accommodation over St Albans, but nothing around Harpenden. And interestingly, we had a conversation over the weekend at one of our events with someone from Visit Hearts, where there's a group of hoteliers that are looking at the potential of future sites in and around this area, particularly linked into the new Universal development over in Bedfordshire. This area is seen as a real key catchment for that. given proximity to London and things like that. So there is a piece of work that's accidentally started on that does link with Business Forum. The other big area is around starting business in Harpenden or doing business in Harpenden. The idea being there is almost like it's an old school word really, but like a directory of, you know, if you're starting certain businesses in Harpenden, where if it's a unit based business, where do you go to for business rate support? Where do you know, what are the council services, PR, things like that. So we put together a brochure almost to promote that. So we're kind of trying to pick off some of the quick wins, and we've done that. And then it's going to be a consistent conversation. Really, we're going to delve into the different sectors to see.
Do we have we don't have a chamber of commerce in Harpenden, do we? There's one in St Albans. Is that?
We don't. No, this is Harpenden's equivalent of it, really.
Yeah.
And the Chamber of Commerce can be very good. I'm not familiar, really close to the one in St Albans. But the idea of the Business Forum is to be really an action-based thing, if you like. There's plenty of networking opportunities for local businesses, but they are kind of useful in the way they discussion things like that. Whereas we're really trying to solve and challenge, deal with issues that we've got the ability to either deal with ourselves or facilitate improvement.
Very good. Okay. Any further questions?
It's the very good brochure that Carl mentioned earlier. Is it electronically posted in the website or like easily accessible to everyone?
It should be, yeah. Yeah, we can circulate that around.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so all those in favour of noting the report from the Business Forum? Thank you very much. Right, next item. So, Councillor Ivor, so thank you for submitting the motion. Would you like to share this with the committee, please?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry,
Well, we propose the motion and then get a second, and then we can.
my apologies, Councillor, please.
So I'm proposing the motion.
I'm second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I believe that admin and presentational issues relating to the highlighting of changes to the financial regulation in CPF on the 11th of the 6th, 2025 resulted in the committee failing to properly consider important amendments to the financial regulations. As a consequence, the committee failed in its duty of oversight, scrutiny and governance. The admin and presentational issues resulted in financial regulations in the 2024 document 4.4 budgetary control and authority to spend 4.8 being replaced at CPF on 11th of 6th, 25 with 9 banking payments, 913. As a consequence, 4.8, which was as follows. The town clerk may A, order unbudgeted goods and services for the repair or maintenance of the council's property without reference to the council or the appropriate committee, provided the sum does not exceed £5,000. Approve budgeted expenditure of sums not exceeding £25,000. Or C, in consultation with the mayor and the deputy mayor or chair of the committee, approved spending above these limits where there is exceptional circumstances or the matter is of extreme urgency. This application shall be reported to the council or appropriate committee as soon as practical. This became after CPF in June 25 as follows. 9.13. The town clerk may authorise both budgeted and unbudgeted expenditure in line with the council's business plan without reference to the council or the appropriate committee, provided the total cost does not exceed £30,000. In exceptional circumstances or where there is extreme urgency, the town clerk may, in consultation with the mayor and deputy mayor, or the chair of the relevant committee, approve spending above this limit, where any such action must be reported to the council or the appropriate committee as soon as practical. I believe I speak for the committee when I say that we value the professionalism and guidance of the town clerk and the RFO and are disposed to approve changes recommended by the officers, but we as a committee must ensure that we fulfil our role of oversight and scrutiny. With this in mind, I propose that the financial regulations revert back to pre-25 CPF, except where national legislation dictates otherwise, And if the town clerk and RFO choose, then amendments can be considered at a future CPF.
As well as the motion, Councillor Lover, could you just provide a bit more context to the reason why you're raising this, and was there any particular failure that you're concerned about?
So I believe that the admin and presentational issues resulted in us failing to properly consider the changes because we weren't aware of the changes. I think the change from unbudgeted goods and services for the repair or maintenance of the council's property is a substantial change or substantially different from authorised both budgeted and unbudgeted expenditure in line with the council's business plan.
Okay.
I think that's fundamentally different.
Okay. Out of interest, were you present at that meeting in June 25?
Was I present?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you vote in favour of the regulation change at the time?
I think that one of the issues that starts off the section on the financial regulations at CPF in June 25 is Councillor Drake, who's unfortunately not here, saying how it may, the lack of, because of the admin and presentational issues, it was very difficult to properly judge the financial regulations.
Okay. Councillor Timmins, your thoughts on this motion?
Yeah, very much the same. I think, there was no track changes in report. I understand there might have been some practical considerations there because the changes were quite vast. And I think some reconciliation, a summary of the changes. I know there was a brief paragraph in advance of the revised regulations, but a more in-depth explanation as to what the changes were and why would have been helpful. I think it's one of those things that there needs to be there should have been it would have been helpful had there been greater explanation as to what the changes were.
Okay.
And why.
Do you believe that the councillors were given adequate opportunity at the meeting itself to ask questions of the officers?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So they were allowed to, okay, fine.
And I'll take that upon myself, is that I didn't do enough. I can't say that, whether it was reasonable for me in the time given to do the cross-referencing with the previous year's regulations. With the current ones, it would have taken a substantial amount of time, I think, to come up with the example given by Councillor Liver about the repairs or maintenance versus the council's business plan. That requires a degree of scrutiny, perhaps, that wasn't available to us at the time.
Instead of clarifying, how many days in advance of the meeting are the notes typically shared with the?
So it normally go out on the Monday before the meeting, the following Wednesday, Chair.
Okay, so that's 9 days. Okay.
Probably a week posted. Yeah, take a few days to get them, maybe longer than that.
Okay, so there's essentially a week between the documents arriving through the post and then you'll be able to attend the meeting.
I think if you look at
They're also sent electronically though, aren't they, in advance of the post?
So if you look at the documents that we've received for this CPF in comparison to the ones we received for last CPF, I think they perfectly illustrate what can be done when information is highlighted.
May I ask a quick question? I'm trying to rewind my brain 12 months and it's quite hard. When you're talking about the admin and presentational issues, you mentioned track changes.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? We couldn't see the difference.
Yes.
I can't remember myself. So
Yeah. I think there was a sheet in advance of it saying there was not substantial changes. It gave probably a highlighted maybe 3 or 4 points of the changes.
Right.
Because it didn't cover, in retrospect, all of the changes that were made. All of the significant changes that were made.
I couldn't comment on that without seeing it. I've never got a copy of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't remember for a long time.
Councillor Sean, your thoughts on the motion, please?
I think I will agree with on different angles. I think the regulations or the order itself is a directional documents. I think we have to trust on the working team on day-to-day operations. But then if the directions have something in questions, then I would think it's a safe way to make sure that at least the direction is, or the regulation itself is correct, or at least agreed by all of us. And then we can then have a full trust on the working team in executing the right directions.
Okay.
So it's more, it's more after seeing the motions now, I think that, it seems to me, I also don't have the perfect memory of that, but it seems to me that there is, seems to have a doubt on the directional document.
Explain that to me.
So for example, when they mention like check changes, if those check changes are easy to follow and self-explanatory, and especially on those important issues, then I will be more comfort. But according to Councillor Kevin, if the check changes is like kind of, it takes a very long time to back it by the check changes. And also if it's like important but without explanations, I don't think most of the people will like really thoroughly understanding the changes behind it. I think one for Kevin.
So the gist of your point is that despite having a week to read the documents, the council has required a track changes version to understand what was written in the documents. Is that the statement?
If that, I'm just taking from the commercial world. I think if there's an important changes in like important documents, the check changes should be very clear and easy to understand and easy to follow. The purpose of the check changes is to help the readers to read it without any difficulties of what has been changed. And then if they have question on the changes, especially when it's important, then it's better for them to like have a chance to ask the differences and then got a proper answer before like those changes were like. So that is more from my perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor John. Madam Mayor?
Thank you for providing me with this. Looking at it, it kind of pulls on the thread, but it's not necessarily clear. But reading it now, I haven't had time to compare it exactly to your motion, but it feels quite clear because there's 5 points, clarifies the RFO and their explicit new role. It talks about procurement thresholds and the updated version, what it's gone from and to. And then it goes into a breakdown up to 15, best value, 15 to 30, minimum of 3, etc. It then goes into the delegated spending authority, and it talks about unbudgeted expenditure, banking payments and procurement cards. So I'm trying to understand what's missing from these 5 points that we've missed.
So I
I'm not
suppose,
sure what it is.
so the main point that is missing
Yeah,
is the authorization for the town clerk to make a payment for changes to a building
the building. Okay.
going to the whole business plan, which is basically the basis on which the council operates.
The building.
Now, I think we can all, sitting around this table, agree that that is a fundamental change. You don't think that's a fundamental change?
No.
So,
I'm not even sure why we're having this debate, to be brutally honest, because this committee reviews things regularly. Changes come up for review. I'm not, have we missed anything significant? Has there been any malfeasance? Has there been any negligence? Has there been any? No.
so if you don't think it's a fundamental change, you're quite happy for it to come back to what it was?
I don't see what is wrong with the way we're doing things now, because
No, I'm not talking about generally.
I see what's wrong with the way we're doing things now. And the thing that's wrong with the way we're doing things is that two councillors have walked in here and said they didn't sufficiently review
Yeah.
the documents last
Yeah.
week.
correct.
Nobody in that room reviewed the documents.
Councillor Drake wrote us an email saying that he does not accept that there was a failure of oversight. The regulations were reviewed under normal process last year, and he does not feel he was the only councillor to look through the changes.
So what have you just read out?
Councillor Drake's statement on this to us via email to brief me in advance of this meeting. And I think it's disgraceful that you've walked in here and said you didn't have sufficient time to review a document before you authorised it. Completely and utterly disgraceful.
There, we can look at the.
As you have pointed out several times.
Yeah.
I was not there.
You-
But nonetheless, that does not make it any less disgraceful that you approved financial regulations without sufficiently reviewing them.
Disgraceful. We can look at the motion and we can watch Councillor Drake say and discuss for some length of time about how it was difficult to follow the changes to the financial regulations.
But there's been no significant negative material impact on anything.
In the last 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah, so why are we wasting time with this? I'm sorry, procedural nonsense instead of concentrating on what matters to residents
Well,
out there.
I'm not saying I 100% agree or disagree with you, but just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't. So, but I'm just trying to understand what it was. It's the property thing. I've read it 7 times. I'm really sorry. What line is the reference to the property in 9.13? You talked about council property.
No, so in 4.8 in the old CPF document,
Yeah.
order unbudgeted goods or services for the repair or maintenance of council's property.
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong section. Thank you.
So, and then it becomes the town clerk may authorise both budgeted and unbudgeted expenditure in line with council's business plan.
Okay, so what are you worried about on that bit? That we are neglecting the property or that something's exposed?
What I'm pointing out is that a fundamental change was made to the financial regulations.
Yeah.
That those financial regulations were presented to the council without highlights. This was made it difficult for the council, for the committee to consider the changes, and something fundamental was approved without proper oversight.
So on the list that you just shared with me that you passed over to me, the 5 points, what is not in there that has changed?
What do you mean?
So on the 5 points, I thought the 5 points were quite clear. On last year's document, the one that you passed up to me, I think those 5 points are quite clear. I'm just wondering if there's something that wasn't on them that you're worried about, because it says the main 5 points of change are, and then it does list them in the document.
No, it doesn't mention the change of removing the unbudgeted goods and services for the repair and maintenance of council property is changed to the business plan.
But to Madam Mayor's point, that there's been no negative material outcomes or impact. Why is this relevant?
Because-
Why does it?
Because of, well, I say we can use the example of public perspectives. What was it? The survey company. So we had an estimate that was wildly inaccurate, between 5 and 10,000. Yeah.
Well, we discussed this.
No,
some time ago.
but this is how the procurement process worked. So we had a wildly inaccurate estimate, which the retention of elements of the financial regulations, which I believe had changed, meant that it wasn't considered suitable for procurement. We then understand that the cost of the public perspectives is over 30,000, it becomes 32,000. And of course, the permission granted by 9.13 means that it never came back to the committee.
If I may, Chair, the gist, the substance of the changes here, which you say you did not properly review, is that you effectively are authorised and have authorised council staff to carry out the council's business plan. And frankly, the gist of changing back to pre-2025 CPF regulation is that you don't agree with the council's business plan. And that is not an issue for this committee. And fundamentally, that is not something for which you should effectively accuse council officers of covering up a change in the underlying regulation. And I think this motion's somewhat inappropriate on that basis, and I'm very surprised you bought it.
Well, I'm sure you'll get over it.
I'm sure I will, but I'm very surprised.
Councillor Sperry, the reason I'm supporting this motion is that Councillor Ivor has given an example. I don't know what else was in there because there are no track changes. There has been no reconciliation. These 5 points cover some of the major issues or the major changes, but they're not complete. And that's the reason I'm supporting the motion, is because it doesn't completely say what the changes are. So there could be other things in there that we haven't seen.
Councillor Timms, with respect, I think the implication of what you're saying is that all of us who grown adults with a certain degree of education and professional skill sets who stood freely for election are given a series of documents with at least a week's notice before the meeting, and without the ability, without a track changes amendment, which I accept is helpful, but frankly not essential or vital to a grown adult duly elected being able to competently prepare for a meeting. I think the implication that we're unable to authorize things unless there's a track changes is something I find very difficult to support, Councillor Timmins.
Well, I think it's good practice. We had it the year before, we have it this year.
It might be good practice.
Yeah.
But the statement, the committee failed in its duty of oversight, scrutiny, governance, is a very big statement. You're accusing the entire committee.
Yeah.
I think you're accepting that you yourselves, as individual councillors, failed in your duty of oversight, scrutiny, because you didn't read the documents.
So were you aware of the change?
Yes, and I look at it now, and I would vote in support of it again, because I think the key point is that we have a highly competent team of council officers.
Yeah.
We have a business plan that we all voted, actually cross parties, as I strongly recall. I would vote for that again. We have, it's to me a very reasonable amendment, probably a very positive amendment that I would vote for again. So it is a change. Is it a change that is out of line with the council business plan? No, it is not. It actually enables the council's business plan, But I just think the motion itself, while okay, administratively, okay, fine, but to accuse a committee to fail in its duty, as opposed to accepting responsibility for your own failure to properly prepare for the meeting, is something I find it's a very big statement. And I find
saying Councillor Drake to prepare for the meeting.
Councillor Drake
Sounds
feels
like you
he
did
had
prepare for the meeting.
prepared and was aware of the changes and is comfortable with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I have a question for the officers, if I may, which is, I think it said at the piece of paper that Pip handed to me that it might be in line with national guidelines. What are national recommendations on this? What are other councils doing? Is this pretty much standard now in terms of what we moved to last year?
So when we get on to the next item on Appendix C are the NOUC model regulations. For an authority our size, the NOUC model regulations don't fit completely with our size of operations, because the NOUC model regulations could be for a very small parish council with a part-time town clerk. So they're not fit for purpose for us. So that's why on the next item, I've provided the model regulations and our own. So if councillors want to see the differences between the two.
Do any of them affect what's written on this in this motion in any way, or is it something that's totally different?
I think, Chair, we're not going to comment on the motion,
Okay.
at all.
Fine.
Given some of the comments that
Okay.
are made.
I
think the sentence of like fail in the duty of oversight is a bit strong, but I'm looking at this motion just now from different perspective. I'm looking from what is the good intent of it. I always look at those things. I think the good intent of it is trying to like revisit although everyone has prepared and then vote on motions, but then on this motion itself, maybe have a second look. Everyone have a chance of a second look. And when they have a second look, they find out that, oh, I have further questions on that, and I have like a doubt on it. And from my perspective, I think this is such a very important document that will like line out the direction for all the people who following the regulation in the futures. It is from such perspective. I think having a second look on it and then like not the I don't support those strong wording, but from the good intent of it, having a second look on the documents and then making everyone feel comfortable is also have a good value or good things coming out from it.
So what I find a little bit odd about the motion, to be very candid, Councillor Liver, is the very next item is a review of the financial regulations. So all of us have the opportunity to comment on every item within the financial regulations. So I find it a bit odd that you introduce a motion at this stage, which would actually tie our hands in the next stage of the agenda of this meeting as we review the broader documents. I
don't think there's a problem. I mean, I had to, in order to get the motion accepted, it has to be handed in to the proper officer.
I'm sure, and you're free to raise any motion. I'm just that procedurally, literally the next item is we're going through the standing orders and financial regulations. And I would absolutely invite comment on all aspects of the regulations from all councillors. But again, this motion stating committee failed to properly consider and the committee failed in its duties. So I don't know why you need to make those statements in your motion when I think what's clear is that you and Councillor Timmins failed in your duty because you yourselves admitted you didn't properly prepare for the meetings and you didn't properly consider the notes, track changes highlighted or not for the meetings. You voted on something which you yourselves admit that you haven't prepared for. So
I haven't said I didn't prepare for it.
But you're accusing everyone else of failing to properly consider their important amendments. I certainly read the notes every meeting intent, and I'm expecting.
And you don't think this was a substantial change?
A, no, and B, I can read the documents. So I don't need track changes, Councillor, to prepare for the meeting.
You read, you thought the change was a substantial change, and you're telling me that you don't think it's a substantial change.
It's a minor change and it's a positive change.
It's a minor change.
It's a change and a positive change, Councillor, and I would vote for it. I would vote for it again.
I don't ask whether it's positive or negative. I just asked whether you thought it was a minor change, and you're telling me that you think that is a minor change.
In the context of that, we have supported a business plan for this council, of which have secured unanimous cross-party support. This is not a material change, Councillor. And I think, frankly, what's also very evident for this, and you've mentioned it yourself, I think the origin of this, and I would ask you to confirm whether you've received outside support for the preparation of this motion, is I think there's a further agenda at play here, which is your membership of the district council as well. Because clearly the town council survey, which was approved by this council, funded by this council, was very awkward for the district council. And I think you found it very challenging to manage your conflicts of interest between your two duties between the two bodies. And I would just ask you to confirm, we are on the record, Councillor Liver. Have you received any support from outside bodies for the preparation of this motion?
None whatsoever.
Okay, thank you for.
I mean, I can tell you how I came across it.
Please.
So I was looking at the recording of the motion that I presented at the last CPF, and I thought, you know, I should really have checked the YouTube recording of CPF in June 25. I could have learned something from that before.
Particular reason you chose that particular meeting to look back on, Councillor Liver?
Because it was the most recent one. So I thought, well, I'll have a look at that, and I'll see whether there's anything I can learn from it, from the discussion about the financial regulations, because this was the financial regulations that all of it dealing with. So I go to the start of the recording, YouTube recording, and there's this bizarre conversation going on between council officers and some of the councillors about how nothing had been highlighted. And I thought, gosh, that is so odd. That is so peculiar. So I went back through all the other previous financial regulations that are on the website and saw where where there had been changes, they'd always been highlighted and underlined. So I got to 2024. Yes, everything had been highlighted, everything had been underlined. So I thought, well, what happened in 2025? And of course, then I went to 2025 and I saw all the changes that had been made to the financial regulations without being any attention drawn. So I think your discussion about district council is spurious. I think you know that you're on the back foot because of these substantial changes to the financial regulations, and so you've come out with this piffle that I was incapable of somehow finding this change, and that I must have been supported by it. And I resent that comment.
It was a question and you're entitled to feel resented, so.
I do. I think this is shabby.
Okay. So in terms of procedure, Town Clerk, what do we do next?
Yeah, Chair, so you do have a proposal in front of you, which is the last sentence of the motion. That proposal does need to be voted on as to whether you wish to revert back to the pre-2025 CPF financial regulations.
Okay. And if we do that, then that is hard coded into the review, into the update of the financial regulations, which we go into the next agenda item.
Yeah, so essentially, Chair, the next agenda item becomes null and void. You don't consider that.
So the entire review of the financial regulations itself?
Yes, because you would just approve to go back to a previous version, and then that becomes the version of the financial regulations.
So by accepting this motion, amongst some of the consequences, we would then lose the ability to review these financial regulations this evening.
You would, yeah, because you would have just made a resolution to make changes to financial regulations, and you can't then change those within 6 months without special resolution. You could, in effect, have a special resolution. Actually, you could then, council would need to verify that. So in effect, then you could consider this as it would be on the 22nd of June. And then should you wish to make any further changes, you could, in theory, have a special resolution that comes back to September to do that.
Thank you.
I mean, it does say except where national legislation dictates.
Yeah, Chair, it's not as simple as being able to do that, because essentially you're being asked to vote on something, to move back to something, a set of documents that you don't have in front of you as well. Of course, it's up to the committee to do that. Just to clarify, probably just one point in terms of procedure, just only because Councillor Lyden mentioned it, this was a borderline motion. Ordinarily, we wouldn't accept a motion where there is already an agenda item on there. But the existing agenda item that was going to be coming forward, which resulted from our annual review and a previous motion that was agreed at the last time, wasn't focused on any previous financial regulations. So that's the only reason why it felt fair to include this motion. But it was borderline, and ordinarily you wouldn't include a motion where there's an opportunity to discuss that subject in any case. And Councillor Lyford was aware that financial regulations were being reviewed in any case.
So, Councillor Lyford, is this the only item in the updated regulations to which you have a specific issue? Or did you have an issue with the entire review itself?
Sorry, you're talking about today's review?
Right.
Or...
No, so in your motion here, you've highlighted the difference between section 4.8 in the previous regulation and section 9.13 in the current regulations.
Yeah.
Is that your only specific concern regarding the updated regulations, or is it essentially you're concerned about the entire process for the entire document itself?
So I have major concerns with this document that we've got to consider. So if you want me to withdraw my motion, I can withdraw my motion and we can go and go through the financial regulations.
So for the record, I do respect, please believe me, Councillor Livy, the legitimacy of your opinion that you don't agree between the changes in the policies, and you yourself might view those as significant changes. So I do respect those. What I would invite you to do is to withdraw your motion and we will specifically consider the updated paragraph 913 in the new regulations. And I would absolutely invite you to propose a change that would essentially revert back to the wording in the previous regulations. The benefit of that would be for this committee to have the opportunity this evening to conduct its review of the standing orders and financial regulations, which, as I see it, have been provided with Mark Change's copy.
Yeah, brilliant. Enough. So what you're saying is that I withdraw the motion, but where I say that we go back to the 4.8 or however it would be numbered, that we can look at when we discuss this.
I would invite you to propose a change, and as we do with every council committee meeting, Councillor Ivor, because I think you've been on these committees for some time, I will invite full debate from everyone present in the meeting, and we will ideally arrive at a consensus, and if not, we will have a vote.
Yeah.
Right. So just to clarify, so I'm inviting you to withdraw your motion on the basis that we've.
My motion.
Okay, thank you. Town Clerk, is that sufficient for us to move forward?
Yeah, I believe so, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. So moving on to the next item. So this is updated standing orders and financial regulations. And are there any key changes that you would like to highlight to the members, please?
Chair, can I just say one thing before Dan does his
Please.
introduction? And it's probably appropriate to do it on this side at this point in time. And that is just as a reminder to refer you to the internal audit report, which you've received at the meeting this evening, which includes reference to the existing financial regulations and makes a number of statements in relation to those. So I make that point because from a governance perspective, the current financial regulations are sound, as proven by the internal audit control. So that's the key starting point to the document that you've got in front of you here. Sorry, Dan, over to you.
So in March, the committee specifically asked for a review of Section 8 of the financial regs, which relates to procurement. In practice, while that section has been the main focus, the opportunity has also been taken to look at the document as a whole, trying to improve clarity, consistency and alignment with current working practices and governance standards. So the most significant changes are therefore in the procurement section, which provide guidance around thresholds, responsibilities and the processes that officers and members must follow to ensure value for money and compliance with compliance legislation. I'd like to say as well, more generally, the financial regulations are basically the council's rule book for managing money, setting out how spending budgets, approvals and financials control should work, while still allowing some flexibility to deal with genuinely urgent issues, such as the emergency health and safety tree work that occurred last year, without needing prior approval. So we're trying to find that balance. And just to add as well, Chair, regarding the standing orders, that review is more limited, and so just to make sure that we're closely aligned with the national guidance on that, and the changes are more minor corrections and amendments. But just a full set of appendices.
So having read the reports and the updates yesterday evening, there is a mixture of sort of minor administrative changes, so some minor wording changes, and there are some substantive changes, particularly as you say, to the procurement regulations as well. So in the interest of process and focusing our energy on the key topics, what I'd just like to propose as a process is we'll go through page by page, and whether essentially administrative changes, let's just go through and say yes, agreed, move quickly, because I do want to focus this committee's energy on the substantive issues. Is everyone okay with that as a process?
Yeah.
What page are you starting on, so we're all on the same page?
It's going to be, well, personally, let's go through the track changes version 110.
110.
So I will as a process, just move through page by page and excuse me, Eric, do you need to sort of vote on every page, or can we just say we'll move page by page unless there's a interruption?
Page by page, and then at the end, we can make the recommendation to hopefully approve the financial regulations along with any
Okay.
changes that are noted. If we go.
Okay. Now, just for the avoidance of doubts, everyone has the right, put your hand up if you want to go back, that's fine. Right, at the end of the meeting, I want everyone to ideally have a consensus on the changes. If we don't, we'll have a vote. Okay, everybody, so starting with page 110. I'm just going to move out loud to page 111. Page 112. And it's the first number of what I believe are administrative changes. 113. 114. And 115, just as a admin change in section 4.3. 116. 117. 118. And moving on to page 119. Again, just to confirm, if anyone wants to go backwards or stop, that's absolutely fine. Just let's do that. Right, so this first major change is section 781. And then just to walk us through, and I think some of these changes are rewording, but it's essentially the same meaning. So if you just help us sort of clarify, and we'll open for questions.
So that's just to try and emphasise so councillors are aware of the specific legislation behind capital receipts that mean we're limited to how we can spend capital and what we can use capital receipts for. So you're just trying to quote the specific legislation.
Just going to keep nudging forward, but if people want to go back, that's absolutely fine. Okay, item 8.1.
Can I pick up on 8.1? In that it doesn't include, as with the NALC, usually, so that where I'm referring to NALC, I'm referring to 5.1. And that is usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers. I think that should be included. So to follow the quote, whole life cost and cost risk, and by usually obtaining prices from several suppliers.
Okay, understood. I think if you look later in the section, particularly from 8, 11, 12, 13, there are specific instructions given to the council officers regarding the obtaining of quotes. And I think actually below £2,000 in value, it's essentially value for money. Okay, so I think I understand the intention behind your statement, but I think this is what I would describe as an opening statement. And for me, I actually work in procurement. I think the statement that the purpose is best available terms, and the means to that end, which to your point, Councillor Liver, is achieving multiple quotes where possible and appropriate. That's covered under 8, 11, 12 and 13.
I think the opening statement in 5.1 or 8.1 on there is that it's explaining about what the intention of the procurement is, and that is to get as many quotes, estimates as possible. And that is just part of the opening statement about it, and I would like that included there.
Okay, understood. Any comments on that request?
I think it's fine as long as it refers to the tiered structure further on, 8 points. and 11
You say
12.
the proposal is fine or the existing text is fine?
I think what I'm saying is, I think if we put something in, it needs to refer to the fact that there's a breakdown on the value later on, because you don't always search for multiple quotes as per your point about the £2,000. Because then it implies that we do it at all times and we don't.
Well, is it not just implicit in the role of the officers that they obtain multiple quotes, and unless we think they're utterly dishonest, that they look for best value and obtain multiple quotes? And you don't want as many quotes as possible because you'll never get anything done.
I don't think that's actually right. I think the point of the legislation is that you get as many quotes as possible so that you get good value for money.
But
And I think we can
Councillor
also,
Liver, with all due respect, these men are trying to run a council on our behalf. You have to work in an efficient and reasonable way.
Yeah.
I don't know of any organisation that gets as many quotes as possible. That in itself is impossible.
I'm not saying as many
Impractical.
quotes as possible. I'm just
You
saying,
did just say that.
well, it's
You did
usually,
just say that.
so it's just usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers.
I think 3 suppliers as stipulated,
Yeah.
8.10 and 8.11 is
Yeah.
probably sufficient.
Yeah.
But if this is going to be a sticking point, which changes functionally nothing, but causes this meeting to be prolonged unnecessarily, then I would be inclined to vote for Councillor Liver's proposed changes to add some loose wording about the number of procurement estimates that are required at the beginning of the section.
I'm just referring to the NALC.
So I understand that, Councillor Liver.
I'm sorry it's so tedious for you.
If you'd read it in advance, you would have known that 8.10 and 8.11.
And you keep referring to this, but again, we are not operating in some illegal, inefficient way. I see no bearing on these regulations that you keep raising, Councillor Liver. We are not out of kilter in any negative, way that would call into question the way that the council is operating or running, despite these regulations.
Could I just sort of contrast means and ends? So I think the end result is captured quite well in section 8.1. The end result that we want to achieve is value for money consistent with quality. That is the goal that we want to achieve. The obtaining of multiple quotes is a means to the end. And that the means to the end is actually detailed in 3 paragraphs later on in the paragraph. There will be many instances where obtaining multiple quotes is either not possible or.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
And I don't think that. I spent most of my career in procurement. The purpose of procurement is not to obtain multiple quotes.
I'm not suggesting it is.
Well, okay, but by stating that into section 8.1, you are actually hard coding that into the purpose of the procurement organisation.
So you think the National Association of Local Councils model regulations is wrong?
I haven't read them, but frankly, I don't see that as.
Have you not read the papers?
I've read these papers.
So you have read them.
Councillor Liver, I think that the end is to obtain value for money.
Yeah.
Clearly states the end, which may include obtaining multiple quotes for different levels of spend, is already captured in 8, 12, 11, 12, and 13, 14. So
Okay,
I don't.
but we can come back to this then, can we?
Well, we can,
Yeah.
but frankly, there are other things, and probably that's more deserving of attention. I see this as a probably unhelpful addition to the regulations, Council Life. It's essentially it confuses means and ends, and it actually potentially creates a contradiction between this statement and the statements later on in the. You have to consider these documents as a work instruction, and if you create conflicts between them, we create
I don't
problems.
see that there's a conflict, because all it says is uses the word usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers. Usually. But usually is a vague word. It's not, but it's a starting, isn't it?
I prefer not to be vague at all, Councillor Liver, to be honest.
If If I may, Chair, I think the reason it opts for usually is because if you read 8.13, it is specified that for purchases below the value of £2,000, quotes may not need to be sought. And at that point of value, it may be actually in the council's interest financially to have the officers not spending time acquiring needless quotes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion that we keep going and maybe when we've reviewed 8.10 to 8.13, it might.
Understood. Okay. So I'll move through the page and let's move on to all on an item by exception.
Yeah, I've got a question on 8.3. Sorry, were you going to move on to 120?
I was just about to, but if you have a comment on 8.3, please go ahead.
There's near the end of the paragraph in brackets, only relevant if GPC is no longer in place. What is GPC?
General power of competence. General power of competence.
Okay. Why not have been added in?
Because if for whatever reason we didn't have the town clerk in post and didn't have general power of competence, then different rules apply because we haven't got a town clerk in place.
Sorry, Chair, let me just clarify that. So the general power of competence was something put in place in the Localism Act in 2011,
Yeah.
which essentially enabled any council that met the criteria for adopting the general power of competence to act in any way that an individual would, as long as it's legal and lawful.
Yeah.
So after every electoral cycle, this town council considers whether it wants to operate under the general power of competence, whether it meets the criteria. Any council that doesn't operate under the general power of competence, which the vast majority of those councils that follow the NALP model regulations are relevant to, every decision that's made has to make the legal reference to it within that decision. And there is much greater restriction on what those councils are able to do.
Okay.
So that's what that refers to there. So with no general power of competence, for example, if take the example that these financial regulations will be in place until next June, which is after the period of time where the town council considers its general power of competence next time.
Yeah.
For that period of time, if there wasn't the general power of competence, then that paragraph would be relevant. Any decisions taken within that month
Okay.
would need to, the RFO would need to include verification of the legal nature of that decision that's being asked for.
Could I just request that the full wording is put in? Because I'll probably forget what GPC means in future. I haven't seen it anywhere else in this document.
Is that a defined term somewhere in the document?
That's easy to add in, Chair. We can add the reference to that. It's important that all town councillors are aware of the general power of competence because every decision you take is based on was included very much in the inductions.
Page 120.
So on 8.6, the exemptions, are those? .6. Competitive quotations are not required from when the contract relates to utilities and gas or specialist services such as provided by solicitors, accountants, surveyors and planning consultants. I think the guidelines are that it shouldn't include its exempt contracts for the purchase of arbitration, mediation, conciliation services and other similar services. And that is really what is referred to in the NALC. 5.12. Specialist services such as legal professionals acting in disputes. Specialist services such as are provided by solicitors, accountants, surveyors and planning consultants is incorrect. Yeah.
It's different to what's in the NALC document.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily incorrect, it's just different.
And I'd additionally note that that doesn't appear to be a change on this year, considering it's in black. And it's underlined, therefore it's just in a different position as opposed to new material.
I think it might be a change.
I think it was in there before. I think there's,
It was in there in the previous one.
I'm,
I think it's worded differently.
So you referring to guidance exempted contracts off the gov.uk website,
Well, no, it's the same.
referring to the legislation
Mhm.
as to what is exempt. Yeah, as I say, it is exempt contracts for the purchase of arbitration, mediation and conciliation services and other similar services. It isn't this, the one that is here, which is specialist services such as provided by solicitors, accountants, surveyors and planning consultants.
So just to add on this, so this is just slightly broader than the NAUC model regulations. So that says such as legal professions acting in dispute. So our regulation, which has been in for some time, just includes more such as examples, but that still isn't an exhaustive list of that. So that's no change to what we had before and is no way different to the model regulations if we were comparing it there. There's just additional numbers of such as.
Examples, yeah.
okay.
And Chair, as an example, at council on the 22nd, you'll see an example of this where a specialist service relating to festive lights is referred to, and there's a decision related to that. So that isn't a such as that's added to this list, but it is a specialist service that we would consider that, and council being asked to consider for this.
It's not exhaustive.
But it's broader than the
Yeah.
actual model.
Chair, it's Chief Clerk, is there anything we keep being pulled over the coals because we're not adhering to these NAUC to the letter? Presumably, the fact that we are means that there's no rules, legal compunction for councils to absolutely follow.
As I understand, they are guidelines,
They're
but not
guidelines, so
mandated to accommodate all of them.
Why is this happening?
Yeah, Chair, I'll just add that. So they are guidelines, they are models. They're not requirements of us, other than the bits that are bold within them that do relate to
I
legislation.
would respectfully ask that we disregard NAUC. Otherwise, we're going to be here till God knows when, hell will freeze over at this rate. And it seems to me this is just sort of obstinate obfuscation and delay.
Well, I think if there's a material defect in the proposed regulations, I would welcome that. But I would just encourage all councillors to look for material and not trivial amendments to the changes, given the
So I would say that the specialist services was in the previous, and it has been for years anyway, as it's described.
Correct.
So we can continue forward.
Okay, well, I propose that we move forward from
Kind of proposing, yeah.
8.7,
Good, it's research.
preliminary market engagement.
You've got that one.
Councillor John?
I'm on next one, 8.8.
Yeah.
Because there's a deleting of the wordings of the town for contracts estimated to exceed 30,000. The town clerk shall seek formal tenders and from at least 3 suppliers agreed by the council. Can I ask why we deleted that sentence? Because it has appeared like a long history, I suppose, in the previous way.
You've read the proposed text at the end of that section. So there's an open invitation which is published to the whole world.
Yeah, my question is if I have an open tender and somehow I just open the tenders and then there's only one tender coming in, does it create like initiative for the team to like try to solicit 2 or 3? Because I think original wording at least 3. I don't think it's too harsh a request for open tender over 30,000. So
It's clarified in 8.11, which says shall seek at least 3 fixed price quotes, all contracts greater than £15,000 excluding VAT.
So
that-
can I confirm the contract greater than 15,000, the quotes, the 3 fixed quotes for contracts, but we get a quote, but my understanding tender is in a different process. Can I?
So John, let me, so the way I read this, and frankly, I think it's, the wording's extremely clear,
Mhm.
if I may. Extremely clear. Now, it's important to understand the difference between seeking and obtaining. So I could seek to obtain 3 quotes. I could go directly to 3 vendors. Whether they choose to reply or not is outside of my control. I might go to 3 vendors and I might get 1 response. So there's an important step in the process. I think it's a logical process between seeking quotations and obtaining quotations. And to me, the text is very clear about seeking or trying to obtain at least 3 fixed price quotes or estimates, or advertising open tenders, which is literally by definition the entire marketplace, which could be 1 vendor or it could be 100,000. So that essentially we are deliberately opening our tenders up to public competition. To me, that's very clear.
I'm not saying the wording is not clear. I didn't come from a bad intent. I'm just thinking that to my basic common sense, originally when we say open tenders, it already means the public tenders.
Correct.
But then the original wordings make the public tenders. It's not just, if I open the public tender for several weeks and there's only 1 tender coming in, I close the tender and then give it to the original wording kind of give a KPI that, sorry, even it's an open tender, may you actively and proactively, if there's only 1 tender coming in, may you just in the last week of the tendering process, they have the kind of like initiative to come out and solicit or seek or actively contact, have you see our tender? Do you want to try to tendering it? Although the open tender process is open and public process, if there's only 1 tender coming in that case, that also create my concern of like.
So operationally, the offices are running an operation, and many of these commitments that they have to have a timeline, and the procurement process sits on that timeline. And I would imagine that the council officers expect to complete the procurement in that period of time, select the vendor, mobilize that vendor, and then move on to the completion of the project. Okay, right? And
agree. And because of the amount of the money, because it is saying that for open tender is everything that's over 30,000. And I think the original creation of the regulation, when they say tender is different from the quotes, is because the amount is more significant. So the tendering process should be more like open to everyone. And also the
import process, Councillor Chong. I think
What are you worried about?
Well, because it's an example, if just I see certain example before that it's only 1 tender coming in,
Yeah,
then it's closed. Then we just award to the.
I think it's got to be open for 30 days, hasn't it, or something? But if only 1 comes in, then no one else might be interested. So to fix the number, there may not be other providers that are actually.
Chair,
I think
Please, councillor.
Do you know, I mean, that'd be my worry.
If I may,
Councillor.
if I may, councillor Strong, I feel very comfortable that the officers do a very, very good job at looking for tenders. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that you're suggesting they don't, but I feel very comfortable with these regulations on the basis that officers generally do an exceptionally good job of procurement. So, you know, I take your point regarding the lack of mandation of the number of kind of responses to an open tender, but generally I've been very comfortable and pleased with the standard of deliverable that council officers have effectively put in front of council after seeking tender. So on that basis, I don't think there's any, I personally don't feel extra wording is needed, but obviously I understand and appreciate why you're asking.
Does that satisfy your question, councillor Chong?
Or may I ask, what is the rationale of, because you deleting a certain wordings means that you have a, that is existing for a while, that means that you must have a logic or rationale behind. And may I ask the logic behind it?
Yeah, Chair. So the logic behind that is that specific clause there relates directly to the legislation. And the legislation is much broader than from at least 3 suppliers. So for example, where you've got a value over that amount, if it is an open tender, and the open tender refers to the process, not the number of people that the council will ultimately consider. So under that value, under the legislation, it has to go to a government, find a tender portal. Once it goes into there, it goes off to whoever is within that government portal. So to give you an example, I play it, and I was trying to find the exact figures from something I looked at the other day on the portal, but when we went out for a play area refurbishment, this is a few years ago, we followed the legislation. It went on to what was called Contracts Finder back then. The government has changed the name for it, and that was viewed by over 500 prospective tenderers. So this is actually, again, broadening and strengthening the governance, because we're following the legislation which has been updated, and it ensures that it goes out to a much wider pool of people or organisations. If then we only get one tender in, then we will always consider that, and the council always reserves its right to accept or reject that. And that's
Okay.
To further put your mind at rest, so if the risk is, are we getting good value for money? Will we get the services that we expect? And are the risks within the contract covered? There are further steps within 820. We actually have a written contract. Okay, so I think what's really important for everyone to understand here is the difference between means and ends. Right, the ends are very simply delivery assurance. The council gets and receives the services or goods that it needs. Market assurance. Okay, have we got good value from? So have we properly tested this requirement against the market? Have we got the best vendors and the best term? And the third one is business case assurance. Essentially, are we getting a good deal? So delivery assurance, market assurance, business case assurance. That's the end. That is the purpose of procurement. And we've got to look at this whole set of procedures as one integrated sort of set of instructions that allow the town, the officer staff to run the procurement process and fulfill their other obligations under the council business plan.
Okay.
I hope that provides a bit of context into what we're doing today.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just move on to page 121. Let's move on to 122.
I have an issue with 817. Town clerk or delegated officer may approve purchases up to 60,000 within budget. Would that not be necessary to refer to report any purchases up to 60,000 to the relevant committee or full council?
But if it's in budget, why would you?
Improved by nature of being
It's in the budget, why would you?
Because it's what you would do.
But if you,
No, listen, if you run a business and you set a budget and the expenditure is within the budget.
And you follow
You
the
don't,
procurement
and you've
process.
followed every rules, and then there's no need to question it. And if there was anything untoward, it would come out in the wash.
So, Councillor Lover, we have
Under
a business plan
constant scrutiny.
which sets the broad goals of the, actually quite detailed goals of the council. We don't have a budget which says, right, this is the money we are authorised to spend. We then have a procurement process which allows the council officers to select the right vendor and agree the right contract, and then approve the purchase, essentially just the authorisation of the signature of that contract. I think if we've agreed a plan and a budget and we have a procurement process, to me, that is all the control that we need, unless there's some kind of exception.
So I suppose I'm going to go back to public perspectives. There was a business, we agreed at council that the estimate would be between, was it 5 and 10,000? And we're talking about procurement. And then it was over 30,000. So the issue was who gave authority to spend over £30,000?
Mhm.
And it wasn't the council.
Okay. So again, councillor, I think I'm trying very hard to be diplomatic here because I know you and I differ very significantly on the topic in question.
No, it's not. I'm not talking about parking. What I'm talking about is the procurement process for the parking survey. We could be talking about widgets.
And we have
had a survey. So we had a estimate which was approved by council, which was inaccurate. And then it went over £30,000 and it didn't come back to council. It wasn't within budget, it was out of budget. So it should have come to council for approval.
There was an issue, as I said, there are some of these actions are time sensitive.
Yeah.
And as we discussed at the time, there was a timetable set by the district council for the record, where for us to essentially to submit our input into their consultation process, we had to complete that survey within a particular term.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about whether the approval was given for the spending of the additional
Are we
money.
talking about a historic event, or are we talking about the wording of the policy on the page, councillor Lowe? Because that's two different things.
What I'm talking about is when you have an estimate, and procurement is about estimates, but when the final cost is greater than the estimate, how is approval given?
Councillor Liver, I taking your point in good faith. The line says within budget. So the example you're giving of an overrun isn't.
Is it over budget?
This is yes,
But it's not relevant.
It's not relevant.
It's not relevant to this item.
So
is it?
whilst I understand what you're saying in principle, it's not relevant to this section. And whilst I understand that there is some tension because of the overrun of the parking survey.
It's nothing.
Hang on.
It's nothing to do with.
As an example,
It's an example
Yeah.
of where you have an estimate which was inaccurate. Then it was over £30,000, and who gave the authority for the £30,000?
This particular circumstance that we have debated in past meetings, and as the chair has pointed out, the officers were in a difficult position because they were obligated to deliver a action within a certain time frame. That is at the heart of this, and this bears no relevance to 8.17. And why are we going back over old ground that was discussed in a previous committee meeting, and the majority actually said there's nothing to see here?
I think what we're doing is we're looking at the procurement regulations. And we're seeing,
Comply with.
when we're seeing how it operated over a recent example.
Which we
So,
comply
Can
with.
I try and move us forward a little bit? I think the question you're asking, Pip, which I don't know if it's in here because we've not got all the way through it yet on the line by line stuff. But I think this lays out the budget levels to where approvals sit or don't sit, which I think is really clear. What I'm hearing from you is when something comes in over budget, all of a sudden, what's the process to be followed then? I don't know if that's
Yeah.
that's a change in here, but we might get to it. But I think that's a separate question to what 8.161718 is navigating. I'm not saying I think your question is a very valid question. I think it's not relevant to this section, but we need to make sure it comes up somewhere.
My council line at 817 and 818 to me set out clear approval limits above and below £60,000.
Yeah. I think that's like when something jumps up unknown to people, what process kicks in at that moment in time? Is there a process that kicks in?
Which is the point that we were debating in council alive is now a withdrawn motion, which comes up later in the financial regulations.
Yeah. So what these are doing are allocating a budget line, excluding that, where decisions can be made.
If
It
I
doesn't talk about when it swings across
Yeah.
from 55 to 70 randomly. It doesn't explain the process that happens then.
So
I
there
think
is,
it's fine at this point.
to councillor Spear's point, in 913 is
It gets to it, yeah.
it is the point and is the exception in the process that would allow us to capture that.
Yeah.
So councillor Lovett, so I can well imagine that we authorise a spend for any service and we agree a contract with a vendor, say £50,000, just picking a number here. And that contract is then agreed with that vendor and the vendor is selected in accordance with all of our regulations. It is quite possible that in the course of the vendor performing their services, that there's a cost overrun for whatever reason. Maybe we've imposed a change or inflation or something else that affects this business. That's possibly what happened with the town centre survey, possibly. But I think 913 is I think the step in the process that allows to capture that sort of almost post-contract award sort of deviation from the process. So we thought we were going to spend 50, we approved 50, but now it's potentially going to be 60. 913 essentially attempts to capture that variation and control that variation.
Yeah. So if for here, so it's going up to 30,000, and then in exceptional circumstances where it's over 30,000 in consultation with the town clerk, the mayor and the deputy mayor. So what is the point of 817?
Yeah, just to clarify, if I take you back to paragraph 1.4, the second bullet point gives definitions to the word. So approve means to refer an online action, i.e. actually me approving an electronic transaction to take place. What you're talking about is authorization. Two things are different. So me approving something in our online system is me being able to do that up to £60,000 or a nominated officer. The authorization side of things is very clear later on, i.e. the process that we have to go through in terms of council committees to doing that. So just to refer you back to the difference between approve and authorize. It's relevant.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's no bad thing to work through the logic of how this works, because there might be a defect in the process we don't want to impose on the council officers. The 817 is an approval up to 60,000, which is with the town clerk.
Different to an authorisation.
Well, that's fine, yeah. Then there's just lots of stuff crossed out for a few pages.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just nudge us towards the bottom of page 122. Are there any other comments on page 122? I just have a comment on section 820. It says contents of written contracts and penalties, every written contract shall specify. I couldn't find a statement that says every contract shall be written. Obviously, we don't want sort of oral contracts and.
Yep.
And so on. Obviously, I don't need to explain to everyone why every contract should be written down. I mean, even an email is an email exchange qualifies as a contract and exchanges of faxes and so on. If we just update the wording to 820, I think, you know, there's probably two items there actually. One is that, you know, every contract with our vendors shall be in writing.
Should that not come towards the beginning of the regulations?
I think that would be sensible. I leave it up to the editorial discretion of the council officers, but I agree with Councillor Spirit. That should be an important statement made as early as possible in section 8. So every contract shall be in writing. And then 820, I think, is fine. So every written contract shall specify. Could I just add a couple of things? And sorry to be a bit nerdy on this. So performance standards, that that's typically relevant for like an ongoing service, you know, an ongoing service level. But I would just add to that acceptance criteria. So that's more suitable for a one-time project where you just accept it as being completed. Little performance standards and acceptance criteria. Now, I don't think this is meant to be a full legal thing, but I think just maybe two other items will be termination rights. So we should have the ability to terminate a contract. And then some sort of warranty or guarantee on the service as well. So the vendor should provide where relevant, I guess, but you know, but a warranty or guarantee on the service. I'll stop there. I could go on much longer, but I think just in the interests of focus, I'll stop at those 2 points.
Okay, do you want?
122. Now there's a whole series of deletions on 1, 2.
Just go back to 819. Emergency spend to safeguard service continuity or public safety. Public safety is on the NALC is in council property.
Sorry, I don't follow.
Don't follow that at all.
Does it, are you saying that it says that the emergency,
Yeah.
the rescue has to be on public property?
Yeah.
On council property? What about if a tree's about to fall down and we need to stop it from collapsing on people?
Yeah.
I would suggest that's probably quite important.
Councillor, I take your point about the council property. So what if we add, you know, service continuity, council property, or public safety to 819? Would that be acceptable?
On council land.
Sorry,
Well, service continuity, that's a public safety. Hopefully, everyone would be supportive of that. And then council property, we have a duty of care to maintain our council property, which includes.
So emergency spend to safeguard service continuity or public safety on council owned property or land that the council is responsible for.
Oh, hi. Councillor Lively, are you sure you would wish to restrict the ability of officers to intervene in public safety for spending purposes, even if not on council land?
Are you honestly saying to me that council officers are going to get involved in public safety issues on areas which are not responsible, the the council's not responsible for.
I'm saying I wouldn't want a regulation which prevents them from doing so, if necessary.
So,
Well,
Chair,
I think,
can I just turn that round? So what you're saying, councillor Ivor, is that you would prohibit the council officers from spending money outside of council property, even if it were a matter of public safety?
Well, no, not.
So you're quite happy to spend council money on anything? to do
No,
with safety?
I think if there is a legitimate emergency,
Doesn't say.
well, I think we need to use a little bit of common sense here, if I may, councillor Ivor, and then, you know, and trust the judgment of our council officers. You know, we live in dangerous, unusual times, quite frankly. And I think if there was a situation where there was some kind of public emergency and council staff were in a position to assist, but it was on an incident not on town council property, I think the Harbin public would expect town council staff to play part.
An example.
Chair, we've got two examples I can give on that. But just to say, I think rather than property, what would be better to use is council assets for that, because it's just a bit broader. But the point about public safety, so two examples that come to mind, and there's probably a lot of other ones, particularly if I refer back to COVID as an example, where we were responding to that and we were allocating council funds. But two that come to mind are both tree issues. So one was on the Wheathampstead Road, and one was in and around Lydic Park. Trees that had come down early in the morning that weren't on town council land, weren't town council trees, but both were on blind spots around bends that our town rangers found first thing in the morning. Both of which weren't priorities of the other authorities, both the district council and the highways having reported it. So in those examples, the town council took the opportunity to commission a tree surgeon to carry out that work. It wasn't thousands of pounds, but that would be an example of where we acted in public safety on land or on assets that aren't ours. And there's probably lots of other those.
And I would say, councillor Ivor, the reputational damage to this council of an incident where such a thing took place and the council officers were prohibited from providing a remedial action because of this regulation, that will be extremely damaging to the reputation of this town council. So I don't see how it's in our benefit to introduce that restriction into these regulations.
I just don't think that the council should set itself up as some sort of individual group that goes around sorting out public safety. And you have the police.
due respect, that isn't what this says, and that isn't what these chaps would do or any of us would do. I mean, I'd find that statement absolutely extraordinary. That implies there's absolutely not a jot of judgment or common sense within our executive team or amongst the council.
Is this an additional line or has it changed from something? It's just underlined, so I'm assuming this is new versus what was there before. Because obviously we had the powers before to take the trees out on land that wasn't ours. So it must have been permitted before.
I think it would have been. I,
Somewhere.
yeah, somewhere I'd have to take the
Read
time
on,
just to try and
yeah,
find it.
yeah.
And
I mean, I guess it must have been, otherwise you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Had the
I mean, it's at 8.6. Every contract shall comply with these financial regulations and no exception shall be made otherwise than in an emergency.
Yeah,
So
fine.
it's functionally no different.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy with that. I think we're talking about in an emergency. We're not talking about just going off.
It's a continuity. It's the ability of officers to effectively continuity now. And I can't, I don't know why we would seek to curtail that ability,
For ourselves, yeah.
especially when we're so lucky to have competent officers. This seems
Agreed.
silly. We could be arguing about this.
Agreed.
Okay, if we can move on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4, and 5.
2, 7, I think. So.
6. 2, 7. And 1 to 8. And councillor Live, I think so. Section 9 13 is relevant to the motion that you've previously raised.
I've got a question on line 13. Is how do we deal with unbudgeted expenditure?
So there's various things at our disposal to try and deal with unbudgeted expenditure. So we can, so the terminology that's used is environment. So which is basically we can reallocate budget to try and make sure that funds are budgeted for. To make sure expenditure is budgeted for.
Mr. Lover, would you like to sort of resubmit the wording of your revised text, line 13? We can discuss that.
So the town clerk may, well, I'm reading what's in line 13 at the moment. The town clerk may authorise budgeted expenditure in line with the council's business plan without reference to the council or the appropriate committee, provided the total cost does not exceed 30,000. I don't see why there is no reference to the council or the appropriate committee.
I suppose to that point, it wouldn't the suggestion therefore be that that's because it is both budgeted and therefore approved as part of the budget, and also within the council's business plan and therefore approved business activity. And so therefore operationally, what this clause does, to my mind, and I appreciate we may differ on this, but to my mind, what the clause does is effectively give council officers a kind of reasonable minimum financial threshold to actually just operate the business of the council without kind of needing quarterly council meetings to get minutiae approvals. That's my read of that clause. It's taking aside the issues regarding redlining and changing and specific circumstances, which we need not rehash. I think that that's my read of that line. So this doesn't translate to me as a kind of unbudgeted separate agenda that the officers have decided would be nice. To me, this translates as something that all councillors can reasonably have expected to have been delivered.
I mean, in terms of line 13, when I wrote my motion, I hadn't seen this. So at that point, as far as I was aware, it was still budgeted and unbudgeted.
Understood.
In terms of the changes to this item, line 13, which is fundamental to what was in pre-June 25 CPF. In terms of the breadth of the changes to the item, I think that the councillors, either full council or the relevant committee, should be notified of spends of up to £30,000. I think that should be made. I think it's quite simple thing to do. I think in the age of email, you can send an email in no time at all. I don't see the harm in that. I think that email should be sent within 5 working days.
The only thing I'd say with respect to that, Councillor Ivor, is that, well, and I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying, and it sounds inherently reasonable.
Because it is.
Hang on, just deep breath. I wouldn't want to end up in a position whereby we need to be distributed a financial bulletin every 4 days of all transactions that take place.
If the council officers are that frequently spending budgeted items of £30,000.
No, but that's below 30,000.
Below £30,000.
So that's £5. So then a budgeted and business planned expense of £5 would need to be notified. So we're not talking about £29,999. We're then talking about a £1 expense, because this covers everything up to £30,000.
Yeah.
So I understand and appreciate the sentiment of what you're trying to achieve. I particularly understand it and take note, and to some extent agree with you, if you would say with respect to items of expenditure which have gone over budget or have not been authorised, then we are in complete agreement. But I think that for budgeted planned expenditure that has been effectively approved, forecast for, and as I said, could be reasonably expected by all council officers, not council officers, councillors to take place. I don't think we need a weekly bulletin of every transaction.
No,
So I think that perhaps
but I mean,
9.14, adding some wording with respect to overruns and notifications of councillors where vehements take place, that might be more to the nature of what you're trying to get at.
well, no, actually 9:30, well, actually, personally, I'm not sure that I can vote for this. Right, because of the fundamental difference between what was, the change. Right, okay, that's my choice.
So why are we discussing?
But because it's here, so if it's because I assume that I'm not going to win any vote, so in terms of making sure that this is appropriate, then in terms of any expenses, any exceptional circumstances, I think we should be the council or the committee should be notified within 5 working days where it's over £30,000.
I mean, to me, this seems completely unnecessary, Chair, because we have a budget. We have these meetings regularly. We have accounts. Variances are there to be seen. And surely the only thing that matters ultimately is, are we within budget? Are we over budget? Or have we got a surplus? I mean, anything that's out of the ordinary that we might need to be concerned about will come out because we are unsensible. This to me is just an unnecessary another level of bureaucracy that actually makes the work of our executive officers more difficult. They need to get things done. There's time pressures. I trust their judgment. I don't want to be getting emails telling me they've, spent more than 30,000 quid on whatever. Sorry, but that's,
I do.
I run a business and that's how businesses operate. And we ought to be operating more like a business, not piling on more detail and unnecessary administrative burdens, in my humble opinion.
Can I just, I'm feeling we might talk across purposes slightly. I'd just like to hear from Councillor Liver on today's document, what wording she wanted to put in 9.13 or 14.
In exceptional circumstances or where there is
Sorry, which one are we looking at? Sorry.
9:13.
Yeah.
In
Town-
consultation with the mayor, the deputy mayor, or the chair of the relevant committee, approve spending above £30,000. I mean, it could be
Above this limit, yeah.
this limit.
Yeah.
Any such action must be reported to the council or appropriate committee as soon as practical. And so I think that should be within 5 working days.
They might not necessarily have a committee within 5 working days.
Notify by email members of the committee.
Can I just finish my point, Sam? So we're saying that the change you're recommending is the end of 9.13, and you're saying not as soon as practical, but within a week, effectively by email. Okay. And everything else is fine in 13 and 14.
Not especially, but I mean, it's better than it was.
Right.
The thing I take Councillor Liver is I'm very comfortable that the process works and has worked.
Okay.
And insofar as budget variances, various committees are presented with budget variances on a regular basis. Where there is exceptional expenditure, it needs to go via the mayor or the deputy mayor. And as Melanie has been saying, summaries of that are available to councillors. And so,
No, I don't think they are.
well, I think this is a matter of fact, not opinion. A summary of variances is presented to council for each financial. So
So what, to full council?
yes.
So if we've got full council on the 22nd of June, so if there is some exceptional circumstance on the 23rd of June, when would full council be then notified of spending more than 30,000?
At the next full council. And Councillor Liver, I take your point that that's quarterly,
Yeah.
but I have confidence in the operation of the council to achieve and to drive towards the aims it set. And so the only justification for
It
this,
says as soon as practical.
if I may,
It says as soon as
I
practical.
understand. If I may, the only justification for effectively this debate is whether or not you have confidence in the council officers and council to deliver.
I bother to have.
And
I bother
because it's important to have significant and substantive financial regulations. But if you have lost confidence because of the overrun with respect to the survey, that is not confidence I've lost. So we can continue to discuss this all night, but ultimately I'm comfortable that the council has performed its duty, and I don't think you are. And I think that to subvert this meeting for effectively to air a grievance that because of a timing difference, a survey which could have been prevented from going into consultation wasn't. I think it's getting silly because we've been here for over 2.5 hours.
Going on about the parking.
It's the only example you've raised that's about parking.
So are there other procurement processes that you can give me an example of where you're happy?
Sure, I'm happy so far with the process of the floodlights. I'm happy with the various sports initiatives we've been installing around Harpenden. I'm happy with every single thing that comes out of Community Services Committee because I sit on it, I read the notes in advance, and I'm comfortable going into the meeting that I've understood them.
I can't see the harm in asking for notification as soon as practical within 5 working days.
Well, I can, so we're at an impasse. So I think we might just get to a point where we need to actually vote and move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so just in the interest of time, because I would like to finish on time, and thank you everyone for the different perspectives, and I just respect the discussion that's gone on. Let me just note this one for coming back to, because I think what I would like to do is to sort of go through the full documents, and then I'd like the committee members to highlight any sections that they propose amendments or changes, and we'll go through those in particular. But I think this is certainly one where we want to come back to. Okay, so let's move on to the rest of 9. So 128 and 129. One 30. One 31.
It's just numbering changes. It's like one on petty cash.
Yes, okay. So I think that brings us to the end of the change of the financial regulations. So just to summarise, so we'll look again and take a vote if we have to on 9.13. Are there any other paragraphs that councillors would want to vote on or change? Because if not, then we will accept the changes as proposed. But and there's the point about the written contract. As written contract.
Yeah, that's it, Chair. And just to refer you back to 8.1, where you were going to consider later whether you wanted to put usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers and part that at the time. You said you're going to come back to it.
Okay, thank you.
From a government perspective.
Thank you.
Are we going to include no individual member or informal group of members may issue an official order unless instructed to do so in advance by a resolution of the council or make any contract on behalf of the council?
So is that an NALC?
Yeah.
Text?
Is that in here at all? Which is the edited paragraph on?
So that is on the NALC papers and it's on page 148 of the council papers.
Some page what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
148 of the council papers.
148. Thank you.
Chair, on that one, I would strongly advise you not to include that. I think it's completely inappropriate for any individual member, councillor or small group to have any delegated authority at all, even if council approves that to happen. That NALC model regulation is for very small parish councils where there might be one officer, one employee, in which case, in those councils, it's not unusual for councillors to have a more active role in approving things. I think that would be a huge backward step for this council if you were to open up the opportunity for any individual to be, or the council to approve any individual to enter into any official order. I think that would be a huge backward step.
Thank you. Any comments from the councillors on that suggestion?
I'm in agreement with the comment going forward.
So just to summarise.
Chair, could I just add something to that? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Just to be clear, just because we're recording, the reason why I think that's really important is because I've received significant correspondence over the years from a number of individual councillors who have reported that they'd have an issue with that scenario. So just to make that clear, I support the correspondence that they would have given me at various points in time that would make that a bad idea as well.
Okay, understood. So just to summarise, because I'd like to give all councillors oversight of the changes that we're making. So Town Clerk, maybe you could just help sort of summarise those changes and we run them through. So I think in the procurement section, there was a statement about the contract should be written.
Yep. Finding an appropriate place for that. Yep.
I think there was another change in section 8 that I think you mentioned. Town Clerk.
Yeah, so there's still the discussion about 8.1 is whether you wish that to be added or not. The suggested wording was usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers.
Which is in the previous one that's been crossed out. It's the last few lines, isn't it? Last few words.
Correct.
So there's every contract should be written. There's the point about several quotes in 8.1. 9.3 we've mentioned as well. I've made some suggestions, I think, to 8.20 on the contents of contracts. Are there any other?
I think those are your ones. I think said that he'll add the GPC's full form of it, which is, he says, quite important.
Definition. It's just a language change. We can have the full.
Administrative, I would say. Are there any other changes to the changes that we would like to propose? Because if not, then we'll take a vote at the end to accept the changes.
Well, are there any changes to 9.13?
Well, let's come to that. So I think just to summarise the changes are, let's just take a simple vote to go through them. So I'm proposing that there's a simple statement at the start of the procurement section 8 that every contract shall be a written contract. All those in favour, raise your hand. Okay. In section 8.1, I think Councillor Lively, you are proposing an amendment to the text, which says that, and I'm paraphrasing, so please correct me, Councillor Lively.
It's the end of the paragraph above that's been crossed out. Starts usually. It's just bringing back the usually by obtaining. Can you see the original?
So what is the proposed amendment, please, Councillor Lively?
Usually by obtaining prices from several suppliers.
Okay, all those in favour of accepting that amendment, please raise your hand. That amendment is not carried. Thank you. 8.20. So suggested update. So we would add performance standards and acceptance criteria. We would also add the need for termination rights and warranties and guarantees. So all those in favour of that amendment, please raise your hand. Accepted. Thank you. And finally, I think we're on to 9.13. So, Councillor,
sorry, Chair, just on, not to slow us down, but on the last point, can I just clarify, when we discussed that, we included where appropriate wording, because what I wouldn't want to do was bind the council into a position whereby contracts must be sought with warranty, but contract warranties can't be obtained, therefore the contracts are not Basically, it's not plausible to find a contract, so I just clarify.
I understand and I accept the points. Just to clarify, I think what we've already agreed. So councillor Sperry, if I'm paraphrasing, we would seek to obtain warranties and guarantees within our contracts wherever appropriate. So all those in favour of that statement, please raise your hand. Okay, accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
So 9:13, and councillor Ivor, if I may just ask for your assistance here, could you just clarify your proposed change to that clause, please?
The town clerk may authorise budgeted, so unbudgeted has been taken. Budgeted expenditure in line with the council's business plan without reference to the council or the appropriate committee, provided cost does not exceed £30,000. In exceptional circumstances or where there is extreme urgency, the clerk may, in consultation with the mayor and deputy mayor or the chair of the relevant committee, approve spending above this limit. Any such action must be reported to the council or the appropriate committee within 5 working days.
So all those in favour of accepting that amendment, please raise your hand. Do we need to take a counter vote?
You do, yes, Chair.
All those who do not agree with that amendment, please raise your hand. 3 to 4. Thank you. So are there any other amendments or changes to the changes that we would like to cover on the financial regulations? I appreciate we've had a very detailed discussion, but I think it's only right that we've done that. Okay, are we now ready to essentially agree to the revised changes as a whole? Is everyone ready to cast their votes? So
Sorry, what are we voting on?
we're now voting on the entire package of regulations. Having already voted individually on some specific amendments proposed by councillors here this evening. So in light of those changes to the changes, we're now going to accept or reject the totality of the changes to the financial regulations.
Can I say something?
Please.
Before the vote, I just want to say that I will vote for the agree of the changes. But I just want to have a kind reminder that if there's something that is really out of the budget for several times, next time, it's always the best practice, although it's not obligated, to inform other members of the councils, especially to the finance committee, if it's involving the budget is overrun several times. I think it's a best practice to do it. Whether it's obligated to do it or not, I think it depends on situations. But I do appreciate that it is being informed, at least.
But Councillor Chong, I understand your point. We've just voted on the wording for 9:13.
Yes, I agree.
It's an obligation on the council officers to report those
Yes,
variations as soon as practical.
Yeah.
So we've literally just taken a vote on that very point.
Yeah.
Are you okay for us to continue?
yeah,
Okay, thank you. Right, so just to be clear, we're now going to vote as councillors on the entire package of changes, including the changes proposed by the council officers and including the changes that we've just voted on as councillors here. All those in favour of accepting the updated financial regulations, please raise your hand. All those against? Okay, that is carried.
I need to nip downstairs to hand off my house keys. I'll give it in 2
Okay,
moments.
thank you.
Thanks.
And we've got the standing orders to approve as well on
Correct.
that item. Right. So I guess in terms of following the same process, I would start on page 179. Follow the same process. Everyone, please, if you want to stop, ask a question, make a point, please put your hand up, please interrupt me. Otherwise, we'll just move through page by page.
What of them, it's just minor
correction, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
make the process before we get rid of it. So Sam, what I said is we'll essentially follow the same process for the standing orders as we did for financial regulations. I will move at pace, page by page. Everyone, please, if you have a question, an issue, put your hand up, interrupt me, we will stop and discuss. Otherwise, I'll push forward. If we need to get into a detailed debate, we'll do so there in real time. And then we'll get to the end, summarize any major variations, and then take a series of votes. Everyone okay with that process?
Sorry, what page would start?
179. So we'll start on 179 and we'll just do a page turn, page by page.
Thank you.
Right. So starting on page 179 and 180. And there's an update point M. Page 181. Page 182. Page 183. Page 184. Page 185. I'm just noting there's a change on section 3.5. Page 186. Page 187. Page 188. Page 189. Page 190. Page 191. Page 192. Page 193. Page 194.
I've got a question on 26 code of conduct complaints. It all seems to be crossed out. Is the final point 26.4 meant to be 6.1? Is it my eyes?
So number change.
Yeah, Chair, this is basically been streamlined within the model documents to just that 26.4 now, which is also in bold, so it's a requirement.
Yeah.
So those other points are in
Gone.
effect covered, but they've kind of gone from the model documents.
And the
So
number
26.4 will become 26.1, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
page 196. Page 197. Page 198. Page 199. Page 200. Page 201. Page 202. Page 203. So are there any individual concerns, questions on individual sections within those updated standing orders? Okay.
I just might change it. The council may appoint a data protection officer, so the council shall appoint a data protection officer. I don't see there's a reason why we shouldn't have one. That's the only piece of that last amendment that is not mandated, and additionally is the only piece that isn't in bold. I just think it's good practice. But I mean, this is minutiae, so.
So just, Councillor Speed, just remind us which,
201. So what the changes in summary is it's removed the old bolded policy.
Right.
replace the bolded policy with effectively the new bolded policy, which is the requirement, maintain the only addition, which is that the council may appoint the data protection officer. And I just suggest that we strike
Okay.
it to shall appoint the data protection officer.
Fully understand the change. Just town clerk out of interest, was that a typo, or was the reason for the difference between may and shall? Because the rest of 40 is all shalls.
Chair, I don't know of any reason why that would be different, and there's no issue by changing that.
Thank you, councillor Sperry. Right, are we ready to come to a vote? So I'm just going to propose that we accept the changes, including the change proposed by councillor Sperry. So we'll just have one vote on the whole thing. With the council shall appoint a data protection officer. So all those in favour of acceptance, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Okay, Daniel, so please take us through the new records and privacy policy, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report brings forward the updated records retention policy and privacy notice for approval. Together, these set out how our council manages its records and how we collect and protect personal data. The records retention policy covers how long we keep information and how it's stored and disposed of, while the privacy policy explains how personal data is used and the rights individuals have under the data protection legislation. The key point is that both documents are already robust. So this is just a review mainly focused on improving clarity, consistency and governance arrangements, but happy to take any questions.
It's just covering. This is an update to the existing policy. It's not a new policy.
It's more just there's no material changes. It's just purely a refresh of the document because they haven't been looked at in a few years. So it's just good governance, just to make sure that we keep these things fresh in everyone's mind. And as well, it's something that we're trying to introduce now on the front of these sorts of policies to say, where we've got the standing orders and financial regulations that will be reviewed annually, these sorts of things, just to give us a review date of 3 years' time. So if we don't meet that, then questions can be asked. So we just need to make sure that we review these things.
And mindful of our previous conversation, so there's no track changes applied to this.
So I haven't, purely because there's no material changes. If you want me to take them away and give you some complete track changes, I'm more than happy to do that, Chair.
I will trust in the council's ability to do their homework. So, are there any questions on the policy? All those in favour of approving both the policy and the privacy notice, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Okay, and the final item is our community grants policy.
That's correct, Chair. This policy update follows on from the committee's decision in March to move to a single annual application window and to review the grants criteria. The key update is the introduction of the formal scoring matrix on page 224 of the pack, which will be used by officers when assessing applications. This is designed to bring more consistency, transparency and objectivity to the process, while still allowing members to make the final decision on any grant applications that come in. More broadly, the policy continues to support local voluntary and community organisations with a focus on delivering clear community benefit and value for money. Overall, this is an evolution of the current approach rather than a fundamental change to the process, but happy to take any questions.
And just to be clear, the scoring matrix provides a recommendation to the committee. The committee then is able to make their own decision based on their own judgment and evidence. It's essentially it's a structured basis. Questions from the committees on this?
No questions. I think it's great. I think the matrix
is a good approach. Very good.
That structure.
All those in favour of approving the matrix, please raise your hand. Very good. And my goodness. Almost been shown. Any other business before we close? No, right, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Who's this?